Why does God reveal himself to some people and remain hidden from others? If God is truly omnipotent and benevolent, wouldn't his presence be clear, universal, and undeniable? Shouldn't everyone, regardless of birthplace, belief system, or neurological wiring, be able to know God just as surely as we know the sun rises? But reality tells a different story. Some people claim to hear God's voice. Others see visions. Some feel divine love in prayer, while billions more, even when they seek sincerely, hear nothing but silence. So, we must ask, is God real and selective? Or is the idea of divine revelation a projection of the human mind? Let's walk through this question, not with doctrine, but with reason, evidence, and philosophy. If an all-loving, all-powerful God exists, why is the evidence for his existence so inconsistent, subjective, and often contradictory? This core question leads us to two major possibilities. 1. God chooses to reveal himself to some people and not to others. But this raises troubling ethical concerns. Why would a loving being hide from some seekers while rewarding others with visions and miracles? 2. There is no God, and all so-called revelations are psychological, cultural, and sociological phenomena created by the human brain. To make sense of this, let's begin by defining some key concepts. When we say God in this context, we're referring to the theistic God, an all-powerful, all-knowing, and perfectly good creator of the universe. Revelation means any direct or indirect communication from this divine being, visions, voices, miracles, sacred texts. And finally, man-made religion refers to belief systems constructed by human societies, often to explain the unknown, enforce social norms, or provide existential comfort. As Yuval Noah Harari says in Sapiens, religions are shared myths, narratives that allowed large groups of people to cooperate flexibly. Whether true or not, their power lies in belief. So here's the thesis of this exploration. The inconsistent and culture-bound nature of divine revelation strongly suggests that religious experiences are not evidence of an objective deity, but rather human constructs. Let's unpack that with some evidence. First, let's look at neuroscience and psychology. Dr. Michael Persinger, through his famous God helmet experiment, showed that magnetic stimulation of the brain's temporal lobe can trigger intense feelings of a presence or a divine being. People wearing the helmet, even atheists, reported religious sensations. Temporal lobe epilepsy also causes vivid religious hallucinations. People believe they're speaking to God or receiving divine messages. In short, the human brain is capable of generating religious experiences entirely on its own. Then there's cognitive bias. Our brains are wired to find patterns and infer agency, even where none exists. That's why we see faces in clouds, or think someone is watching us in the dark. It's a survival instinct. But it also makes us vulnerable to false conclusions. Michael Shermer calls this patternicity and agenticity, the tendencies to see patterns and assume intentional agents, even in random events. That's how miracles are born. Now let's shift to anthropology. All over the world, people have spiritual experiences, but they interpret them based on their culture. Christians see Jesus. Muslims see angels. Hindus see Shiva or Krishna. Have you ever heard of a devout Hindu suddenly seeing the Virgin Mary and converting to Christianity overnight, without any prior exposure? Almost never. This shows that revelations are not universal. They are shaped by prior beliefs. In other words, they are not messages from a single universal God. They are projections of the cultural and personal conditioning of the individual. Religious rituals, like chanting, drumming, or speaking in tongues, often produce trance states. These altered states feel profound. But they're not proof of divine origin. They're part of how the human nervous system responds to rhythm, suggestion, and emotion. Let's go deeper into philosophy. The Epicurean paradox, or Epicurus' trilemma, asks, if God is willing to prevent evil but not able, then he is not omnipotent. If he is able but not willing, then he is not benevolent. If he is both able and willing, then why is there evil? If he is neither able nor willing, why call him God? Now replace evil with divine silence. The same logic applies. If God wants people to know him but doesn't make himself known to everyone, he either lacks the power or the desire to do so. And if he does neither, then he simply does not exist. Some believers argue, faith is a test. But that raises the question, why does God give clear signs to some while leaving others in total darkness? Why does one person get a miracle while another gets silence? That's not love. That's discrimination. Another argument is that God works in mysterious ways. But this is not an explanation, it's a surrender of thought. It places the idea of God outside rational scrutiny, which is convenient, but intellectually dishonest. If a claim cannot be tested or examined, it cannot be trusted. Ask this with secular perspectives. Albert Camus said the universe is silent, and that is precisely why we must create our own meaning. Nietzsche declared, God is dead, not in celebration, but as a warning. Now, we humans must take responsibility for morality, meaning, and purpose without appealing to divine authority. Sam Harris argues in The Moral Landscape that morality can emerge from reason, compassion, and social contracts, not from commandments on stone tablets. We don't need revelation to be good. We need empathy, self-awareness, and responsibility. Psychologists like Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talk about flow states, moments of deep immersion, joy, and creativity. These experiences often replace what people used to find in religion. And evolutionary biology tells us that belief in spirits and gods may have evolved as a survival mechanism. Early humans who assumed a rustle in the bushes was a predator were more likely to survive than those who thought it was the wind. That overactive agency detection, believing something with intent is always behind events, may have been useful in nature, but it also laid the foundation for belief in invisible gods. So, what does all this mean? It means that if God were real and cared to reveal himself, he would do so clearly, equally, and universally. He wouldn't require priests, scriptures, or special visions to speak on his behalf. He wouldn't favor one tribe, one era, one language, or one gender. He would speak to all, as unmistakably as sunlight. But that's not what we observe. What we observe is that religious experiences are shaped by geography, psychology, and culture, not by divine intervention. Without religious dogma, we are free to explore, to question, to feel, and to love, without fear of eternal punishment or blind obedience. We can look at the stars, not as a map of heaven, but as the wondrous unfolding of a cosmos that needs no creator to be beautiful. We can meditate, laugh, cry, connect, and be deeply spiritual, without ever invoking a deity. As Osho said, God is not a being, it's a state of being. But the God created by man, that God is a fiction, a projection of fear and desire. Let us not confuse inner silence with divine speech. Let us not mistake emotion for revelation. Let us live fully, courageously, and joyfully in this mysterious, godless, and beautiful universe. And in doing so, we may find a revelation far greater than any religion ever offered. The revelation of truth, of love, and of freedom.